Good evening. This is our special called meeting on the solid waste mega sites, and at this time I'll call our meeting to order. And our first item on here is to approve the agenda. So I need a motion to approve the
Motion to
agenda.
approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. Now, I see Vance, and I see Christina, and I see Wes, and then I see Brian kind of moving his fingers. I'm not sure who's going to lead the discussion, but he is at a graduation. He's doing his video.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, as you're aware, we took bids for 2 projects. And I'll talk about each one of them individually, and then hopefully entertain any discussion that you'd wish to have as a result. So on May 12th, we had bid openings for both the North Boyd Solid Waste Collection Center and the Stilley Station Solid Waste Collection Center. For the North Boyd, they had the same 5 bidders for both projects. And so the bids were received, they were reviewed. The first thing that we did was put a bid tabulation together for all the bidders. I think you received letters, a letter from me that has a large sheet of paper. On the back of it, it's 2 pages, so understand it goes from the front to the back of that large sheet of paper. The bottom of the back of the page shows the total bid that was received for each bidder. And the way those bids work are that you have a number of items, has estimated quantities that were provided by us, contractor put in their unit prices. The extended total is the sum of the quantity times that unit price. You will see on here some highlighted blue cells. What they represent is where the contractor, when they submitted it, their extended total did not match the quantity times the unit price. Unit price is deemed the order. You don't use the extended total, you use the unit price. And so when you do the math, if it didn't match, we corrected it. So everywhere that their handwritten or what their extensions were did not match, we highlighted it and brought that to your attention. So the ranks of the bidders were number 1, A.R. Chesson Construction Company, $7,241,806.19. Number 2 was B.E. Singleton and Son at $7,315,426.05. Number 3 was Fred Smith Company at $7,439,743.75. Number 4 was Trader Construction Company at $7,448,052.45. And number 5 was S.T. Wooten Corporation at $8,045,022.83. Now, my observation of this or review is that these bids were generally very tight. There was not a great deal of spread among. They were very consistent on the number. So I think that's important to observe. The next thing we did was look at their bid packages for the bid responsiveness. In other words, did they reply to everything that we asked them to fill out and put in to the package? That requires, the bid security, list of proposed subcontractors, list of suppliers, evidence of authority to do business, contractor's license, and qualification statement. So we reviewed all the bidders, and all the bidders were deemed responsive. They provided the required information. The next thing we did was review all the bids for responsibility and determine if the bids were responsible. In other words, that their ability to complete the project. And we deemed that all bidders were capable of completing the project. So with regard to the North Boyd site, we said based on the review, we concluded A.R. Chesson Construction Company was the lowest responsive bidder, and that if Beaufort County wishes to proceed with the project, we recommend awarding the contract to A.R. Chesson Construction Company in the amount of $7,241,806.19. So that is the official recommendation. I would say that you do have options in your procurement. I don't know exactly how you would like to proceed, but you may recognize that these bids are higher than what I had told you in the past. So if you find these prices to be unacceptably high, you have a couple of choices. You can reject all bids. Just say, we're not prepared to go forth with this project at this time for that amount of money. You have the option to negotiate with the contractors, which essentially would be adjusting the scope of work. I believe, and I would rely somewhat on, the county attorney to make sure we're going through this correctly. But to do that, you would start with the lowest responsible bidder in each bid and negotiate a change to the project, which may bring the project down to an acceptable budget. Obviously, we're talking about adjusting some of the scopes of work for that. So that concludes my information from North Boyd. If you would like, I would go ahead and go through the Stilley Station, very similar analysis. And then we can have more of a discussion on how you would proceed. So with regard to Stilley Station, same date, same time, same 5 bidders submitted. Same process, went through. The rank of the bids were number 1, Trader Construction Company at $7,232,730.50. Second was Fred Smith Company at $7,251,251.00. Number 3 was A.R. Chesson Construction Company, Inc. at $7,399,712.72. Number 4 was B.E. Singleton and Sons at $7,698,817.25. And number 5 was S.T. Wooten Corporation at $8,373,101.50. As before, all bidders were responsive. They submitted all the information, and all bidders were deemed responsible, capable of doing the project. Therefore, we also concluded that based on the review, we concluded Trader Construction Company was the lowest responsible bidder. If Beaufort County wishes to proceed with the project, we recommend awarding the contract to Trader Construction Company in the amount of $7,232,730.50. So with that being said, that is what our recommendation would be if you wish to proceed with the project. I believe, I'm trying to stay in my lane, but to present you with some information, we did some analysis on if you were to proceed with the project as bid, no changes. What we tried to do is do an analysis of what the impact would be to the household fee, what you would need to do to cover the project. That takes into account not only this construction contract, it takes into consideration what we think the cost of extension of utilities, water, electric, to the site would be. It takes into consideration that the bid amount that was put in here would be financed by the general fund and paid back with interest. I believe it was over a 30-year period at 3.75% interest, which, as I understand, is 3.75 is what the general fund balance is currently invested in getting paid. So that matches the interest that you're getting in the market. And we, in the payback period of 30 years. We also put together what we would anticipate to be equipment that would be required. These are compactors, loaders, and things like that that are required to operate the site, which is yet to be determined whether or not the county themselves would buy this equipment or the operator that is hired to operate these would buy them, but somebody would be buying this equipment. We put together a list of the equipment, the estimated cost of that equipment, and did a 10-year payback on the equipment. Basically the anticipated life of it. And we also, as we did back several years ago, did an analysis of what we thought you would save via the hauling. In other words, building this site allows you to put in compactors, which allow you to pack the waste more effectively than your current system does, which reduces the amount of pulls or hauls you have to do. And so we did a calculation estimating each site, what materials would go to the new site. The analysis looks at which sites would be closed and which operational procedures would change at the remaining sites. And did some analysis on what we think the hauling cost would go by opening either North Boyd or Stilly Station or both of them. And so with that being said, as bid, in our analysis, it says that approval of the North Boyd site, based on 24,000 households, doing the analysis that we just provided, that it increases the household fee for all citizens in the county by about $7.02. That's just for the North Boyd itself. Stilly Station, if you were to approve Stilly Station only, same analysis, it would add about $20.74 per household for that project to go online. Obviously, if you approved both of them, that would be $27.76 combined if you were to approve both of them. So it is my impression that you have the option to reject all bids, to approve one or the other bid as you see fit. So you have a lot of options here, and I'm here to have any discussion that y'all want to facilitate that decision.
Vance, the numbers you just talked about, is that 20 plus the 7, is that an annual?
Annual.
Yeah, so I mean, you divide that by 12.
That would be your monthly increase, but this is, your household fee is an annual cost. Sir? If I recall, this is the household fee that you pay annually. And
So you take the 27 and, I mean, that's the total
fee.
annual.
That's right.
Okay.
Whoa. You add that to the fee we pay now.
Correct. This would increase the current fee. If, let's say you do nothing, you don't do any of these projects, you have a fee that's in place. Whatever it is, I'm not even sure I'm gonna quote it today.
I can quote it. Right now, it's $196 annually, and the recommended budget for next year is $200 annually. So if you did both these projects, you would be at $227.76.
There you go.
But this is a capital project. I mean, this is like going out and building the school and financing it for 30 years. I mean, it's infrastructure that we don't have. The thing that really impresses me is the fact that all of these bids are almost identical, which tells me that the software that they all use is probably the same. And I'm assuming some of these subcontractors may be the same. What's kind of the reaction of, I mean, I was floored when, compared when we first got started into this project. But at the same time, we're bidding at a time when fuel prices, especially diesel, is at over $5. And that affects everything these guys do. I mean, every piece of equipment they got uses diesel when they build it.
We've gone through a number of bids in my work, and we have seen consistently bids that have gone higher significantly than what was planned on even a year ago. And the fuel prices, I mean, we get into anything made with oil. We do a lot of liners, plastic pipes. Anything along those lines has really increased dramatically. In some cases, they've gone up threefold. So, they are higher than we anticipated, but, it's all said and done. They all bid it, and they all bid it very close, like you said. So that's my takeaway from it.
Brian?
So, Mr. Chairman, and just in some of the conversations we had internally, I think the numbers are what they are. They're fairly tight. They're not the greatest numbers in the world, but they are tight, so that means everybody's bidding generally what they know. The scope of the project, it's a lot of earthwork. It's a lot of movement of that. And in order, I mean, there's some value engineering that can come out of this. There's some proposals we've gotten. Low bidders have said, well, we could do a little something different here. We haven't fully evaluated all those yet, so there could be some price, but it's not $3 or $4 million worth. I mean, it's a couple $100,000. It's not anything hugely significant. The only way you're gonna make a huge difference in this project is reducing that scope of work. So, I mean, if you only wanna put, we talked about it, if you wanna put 4 carousels out there, then you're back to just a regular convenience site. I mean, it really doesn't make sense. So you kinda gotta decide, is this the project you're still gonna do? Is that the scope of the project? Otherwise, you say, let's wait and bid it next year. Because we get into a point where, not that we're trying to force your hand, but if you wait too much longer to go after this work, then you're in the wet season and you got a problem. So if you're gonna try to do it again, you just wait till next year to bid it again and see what numbers do. But, you have all those options. But there's a small amount of value engineering, but in order to really reduce the price on this thing, you're gonna have to cut scope significantly.
Yes.
I'm listening and I'm thinking, if you put it off a year, who says anything gonna be any cheaper? I mean, if we're going to do this, then we have to make the decision. It's either yay or nay. It's not putting it off a year. I mean, because I don't see it getting any better. I see it may get worse. So it is what it is, and we have to work it out some way.
Well, I have some questions.
Yes, sir.
When you gave this put it out for bids, did you present unit price that people bid against?
Yes, sir. Everybody saw what I had a bid tabulation sheet, and it's just like what I sent you.
They didn't
here.
do their own takeoffs.
They do their own takeoff, but they would base their unit price based upon our estimated quantity.
Does this mean if there are differences in estimates, differences in quantities, that we would be open to a change order?
You would be open to a change order either as a increase or a decrease with a change of the quantities that we have.
So this is not a lump sum bid?
It's not a lump sum bid. You will get paid with, especially if you see anything that doesn't have LS, which stands for lump sum, where it says unit, anything that's got a linear footage, a acreage, a cubic yard, each, you pay for the actual work that you do. So what you're securing is that unit price to do that work. Did you get a good unit price? And then you will pay based upon surveys that are done upon the completion of the work. You will pay that unit price. That's what you're really agreeing to, is that unit price times a measured value quantity that was actually completed.
Okay, the next question is, in terms of equipment, I know what some of these contractors have, but do they all have the essential earth-moving equipment, or are some of them gonna use subs, or how does this work?
Some of them have proposed subs, in particular for like clearing and grubbing operations. I think that was pretty consistent. A lot of them had that as a subcontractor, not all of them. Some of them have quoted, say, concrete work. The retaining walls were subcontractors. But most of these companies are companies that move earth. the earth
Okay,
moving.
now is there a completion date in the contract?
Yes, there is.
All right, are there liquidating damages if they don't meet the completion date?
Yes, sir, but in general, what the damages cover is the cost for the county to provide ongoing inspection work, not any kind of a penalty.
Okay, now, how long are these quotes good for?
I think, I don't have my book here, but I think that there are 30 or 45 days that the bids are valid.
All right, well, let me tell you what I think about this thing then. I think this is a lot of money. I think you're in a bubble insofar as contracting goes. World economics are at a peak right now. And with all due respect, Langley will probably be right, because for the last 50 years, everything's gone up every year. But if you look at the history of economics, everything hasn't gone up every year. There are periods in which there are severe downturns. And right now, with the financial situation in the world and countries printing money and gold at $5,000 an ounce in round numbers, $4,500 an ounce in round numbers, these are perilous times to be entering in what I call a peak contract. It's up to me. We'll put this on the shelf and we'll bid it again next year.
Yes.
I've been trying to remember, what were the numbers originally for these
Estimates,
projects?
About
Yeah.
half.
11 million?
about 11 million combined.
Well, I think we started out, when we started on day one, it was, 4, then we went to 5, and then we went to 6. When we put 5.7 million to the side, that was where we were looking at 6 million. Well, at 4% inflation, you're looking at it going up 280,000.
Annually,
Yeah. And inflation's gonna be something every year. It might be 1% or it might be 3%, but it's gonna go up based on inflation.
It can be negative, folks. I mean, everybody runs on this presumption, but look at economic history, and things haven't gone up every year for long periods of time.
Yes.
I'm going to operate from the assumption this is all very complicated. I mean, we're at times in the world right now where some countries are having a hard time getting to and fro their places of business, doing business, because they don't have any oil. The Straits of Hormuz is effectively closed, and we have oil in this nation, but we have a world market, and we have to pay the same price as everybody else pays. So I would like to echo the sentiment that we have from our president, and he's been right about a lot of things, and I'm going to agree with him on this. When this all gets straightened out, the price of oil is going to go down a whole lot. I'm willing to put this on the shelf and bid it next dry season, before next dry season, which is, I guess it will be in a time frame of maybe early spring. That should take care of everything. We are at a point right now where the bombing may resume, or we may have a peace deal, and the Straits of Hormuz may open up. There may take a few more months for the prices to come down, but they will come down. They will come down. There's a flood of oil sitting on those boats out there, and when it goes into the market, that will force the prices down. So that's gonna be my bet.
Tandy? But you're still good.
I have no questions at this time.
You have no questions. Is it possible to do things like, instead of carrying everything off-site, do we have enough property where we can store, go to a corner and pile up?
So
Is that,
it,
I mean, it's a pretty big number to haul.
there were a number of things that were discussed as options. For instance, when this was bid, there was a burn ban that you could not burn clearing debris. That burn ban has since been lifted. There is certainly an opportunity to get a better price if you allow burning on site. Now, I'm not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, in my opinion, that you're gonna get a credit, but I'm using that as an example. We've considered, and I'm sure somebody may be upset on this, but reducing scope. We talked about that. What would that be? And we wanted to make sure that the problem statement is, are you getting something going now that requires you to have additional actions by you in the future to make them usable? I give you this just as an example. One of the things that was considered is that these sites require clearing and moving a lot of dirt and then putting a lot of pavement and concrete on it and then putting buildings. One of the things that we considered was maybe we don't do the buildings right now. That gives you a site that's not fully functional the way it's intended to be done. You know, you asked the question, would you get a better price? That's an example. But it's very hard to say, no, I want to do the buildings, but I don't want to do the clearing and grading now. There's an order that goes that you have to start, and just where do you stop on this scope is my point. So I am not confident if we go into a negotiation with the scope of work as stated, that we build every pad and we build every building and we put everything in that's on the drawings, that we're going to modify this bid significantly. I just don't think that's something that we're going to accomplish. The only way we're going to modify this bid down is to change what we're asking to be built, and it is beyond my ability to tell you what that result would happen, because you just don't know what the contractors what they're going to be able to do at this point.
Yes, Jerry.
This, and everybody else might know the answer to this, and I just don't. At the new locations, will we be collecting fees at those locations for something like? And the reason I ask that question is because I'll just say this from my personal life. This year, I've gone to Flanders 2 times, and I've spent, I think, $75. So for me, the 27 doesn't give me heartburn, because these are things that you have to get rid of and you don't have any other options with. So to me, it doesn't drive me crazy. A lot of people say, well, that boy don't have good sense. But I'm just saying, for me, it doesn't give me a lot of heartburn, because I've already spent $75 taking it to Flanders.
I'm not sure that, the discussion the board has had about expanding the acceptance of material, you may still be required to go to Flanders with some of those materials. even with this new site.
When you look at the, this is on the North Boyd property,
Yes,
asphalt paving, 865,000.
yes.
If you did away with the asphalt, do we save 865,000, or does that include the rocks and the base?
The base is in a separate line item that's underneath this asphalt.
So you were wrong.
Getting rid of the asphalt, you can't
You're
just
wrong.
say, go away. You'll have to, you could say I was good with not paving it with asphalt, and maybe we could save money if you had, let's say, a rock driveway. Yes, we could save some money. But again, that's not what we told them we wanted to build up front.
One thing about this project, this is not a have-to. The world's going to come to an end if we don't do this. It's like cosmetic surgery. It's fully elective. It's a 100% elective project. And you're in a peak bubble on cost right now, with fuel being what it is and the war raging. And I think Commissioner Deathridge is correct. When things begin to settle down, you're going to see oil come down substantially, and you're going to see a lot of other prices come down substantially. And there's also an opportunity. That's a strange word when you hear what I'm going to say. There is an opportunity for the rate of construction and money spending and everything else to come down, which of course will hurt a lot of people when that happens. I just think you're in a bubble, you're in a peak, and now's not the time to go out and start spending money. Wait and see what's going to happen, because if oil goes to $200 a barrel, you've still made a wrong decision, because you're going to get shut down, and contractors will come in and say, we got to have more money to complete this project. So your best bet is that things are going to come down for our advantage rather than going up. And again, this is not a mandatory project. This is fully elective.
I think where you're having the heartburn is the price. But we have to remember, this is a 30-year project based on our numbers. If we're able to rebid it a year from now, and we get 10% off, we've reduced it from $27 a year by $2.70. To me, that's what we're looking at,
Yes, sir.
because of the fact that it's a capital expenditure.
The only thing I will tell you, on the number, the capital itself, when we analyze how much it would impact the household fee, both sites, just the capital part, paying back for this bid only. The capital part of that number we gave you was that, may not make sense, but I'm hoping I can explain this. The construction cost, if you just take purely the construction costs, finance it over 30 years, your annual payments, and divide it by your 2,400 households, that comes up to be $16.93. But as I told you, the total impact of, say, North Boyd was $7, and the reason is you will reduce hauling costs. It will go down from your current system. But I'm just trying to make sure we understand that, yes, it will go down due to that capital, but that hauling side of things is an important consideration.
Well, there's another factor in this thing. You got a $15 million expenditure is what we're talking about. So you got all this money sitting there that you guys are so proud of that you don't want to give back to the taxpayers. And you claim you're protecting the taxpayers with that money. And you take the $15 million, which you're going to have to spend in the next year if you let this contract. So you got $30 million sitting there, say. And now you've got $15 million sitting there. and the economy goes bad, and you're looking for money because you're having trouble collecting taxes, and it takes so much money for the county to operate on. Now you are in a bind because you made a bad financial decision at the wrong time. And this is not the time to, at the peak of prices, to start spending this kind of money, taking it out of the treasury, depleting the treasury, and putting the people of Beaufort County at risk. And that's what you're doing when you do this. You're putting them at great financial risk.
Tandy?
So now I do have a question. I thought when this all started that we were using ARPA funds. And so, I've been accused of being the mastermind behind this anyhow. I got all the way up to phase 3 in my first 3 months here, so, I was a heck of a commissioner, but, I thought it was ARPA funds and we weren't having to come up with any money in. Now you're talking coming up with money. Thank God I still had the, Cherry Run Road convenience station by my house, so I'm not driving the North Boyd Road or the Stilly Station Road, but is ARPA funds not available for this?
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I can speak to that, Commissioner Dunn. ARPA funds have been used for expenses up to this point of the project. We have used ARPA funds for the design and engineering of the project at no cost to the solid waste fund. It was a gift, the ARPA funds to the solid waste fund. And we used ARPA funds to purchase the 2 parcels of property. We have about $470,000 of ARPA funds left in the kitty to spend, so nowhere near enough to fund the rest of this project. And never intended to. The plan for construction has always been to use the $5 million that's in our facility capital reserve to loan that to the solid waste fund. And then the balance we would loan from the general fund to the solid waste fund at the going rate of interest that the general fund was currently earning on their idle funds. So if we look at those numbers, we're talking about a combined project total of about $14.5 million. Currently, and as I said, we'll use $5 million out of the facility reserve fund to lower that balance, or that amount of the project down to $9.5 million that will need to be loaned from the general fund. And currently, we have a general fund balance of $28.1 million. If you subtract that $9.5 million from that, that'll leave you an estimated general fund balance of $18.7 million, or 25%. And of course, we have a policy that states, that we'd like to maintain a 35% fund balance. However, we are loaning ourselves the money and paying it back over a 30-year term, which will return that money as it's paid back to the fund balance and rebuild it back to our 35%, hopefully.
I just don't feel comfortable making my grandkids pay for this dump.
I'd like to say one more thing, since we're still going around the table. I'm somewhat like my friend here. You got blamed for it. I actually have pushed for the mega sites. I think they're very important. I think it's important that we do it so we can start recycling again. I think that's one of the most important things we do as a county is handling solid waste. I really mean that. I still want to do the mega sites, but I don't like paying too much for anything. And this is a worse time for us to build a project where everything is conditioned upon oil. Even, I bet the price of asphalt is up tremendously because oil is up. All the plastic's going to go in, it's going to be up. All the PVC, the cost of moving. And I know the soils in these 2 locations are tight. They're going to have to be moved around a lot. There's a lot of site work's going to have to be done. It's going to have to be done anyway, but it's particularly going to have to be done here so there's proper drainage. I just think it's the worst time for us to do this right now. I'm glad we bought the property. I'm glad we have the design work. The design looks good. There's plenty of room for us to expand. I think if we wait a number of months, I don't think we'll have a 10% reduction at best. I think we'll have a 20, 30% reduction, maybe more. I really do. I'm willing to wait.
Any other comment? All right, somebody make a motion.
I move that we defer the project, looking for better prices as the war in the Mideast settles down and oil prices come down.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right,
second
any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Now, did the motion include like bidding it a year from now, or?
Well, we defer the project
Okay.
until, you know, depending on economic conditions, really.
All right,
If prices don't come down, obviously, we're probably not gonna bid the thing again. But then again, we may be in a corner in 2 years and decide to pull it off the shelf and do it.
all right. Thank you very much, Vance.
Thank you, I appreciate your time.
Keep everything on the shelf.
Yes, sir.
President says we're gonna be out of this in about 45 days, so we might be able to do it within 45 days.
He said that.
Yeah.
Said that 45 days ago.
Timing is not the greatest.
All right, we need a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
and we need a second. Second. All those in favor, raise your right hand.